Start, start, and start. Okay. So deep bow to everyone. Hope you all can hear me good and clear. This is our Buddha Book Club gathering, part 3 of going through the book, Flowers in the Dark, healing trauma through reclaiming our power to heal from trauma through mindfulness practices. And this is a book written by Sister Dang Nghiem, who is a teacher in the Plum Village tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh. So we are gathering together as a community to read through this book on the topic of healing trauma on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. And it is now Wednesday at 8 p.m. And this is our third session of going through this book. So it's great to see Cassiana, Gruyere, Jonathan, Natty, Maddie, Luke, Smurfing, Anna, Kat, Craig, Nina, Justin, John, Gabe, Eric, Koshika, Laura, Monifa, Samantha here on Discord. And if you're watching through YouTube, go ahead and say hello. Go ahead and check in. And let us know that you're here. I already see Kanagawati, Chana in Japan, Missy, Sonia, I can see who's here. So while this event is recorded, so people will be able to come back and watch it, the recording is mainly for people who want to be a part of our book club and following along. And not so much for people to, kind of randomly come across, although that's also okay. Hello, Hoalu. Great to see you here, always. Annie and Anna, hi there. And maybe a few people watching in other places as well. If you are very welcome. Glad that you're here. Whoever you are, wherever you are. Michelle Walker, Amanda, hello. So let's start out with just kind of coming into the space and getting settled. I'm going to offer some incense to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So we can say we offer some incense to our great, perfect ability, our capacity to wake up from our suffering fully, to wake up from the dream of our attached situation. And that's what the Buddha represents for me. And then the Dhamma is just like these spiritual teachings, these wisdom teachings that put us on the path and continue to bring us back into the way so that we can continue growing and developing and waking up. And then finally, the Sangha. So that's our community here. That community of well-minded practitioners on the path who are supporting one another to continue, to refresh, to restart, to heal, to go deeper, and to feel safer as well. Okay, so I'll offer some incense, and then I will ring a bell of mindfulness 3 times. And upon hearing that bell, we can invite our mindfulness into the body and sit together for a few moments. Okay, so as we hear the bell, we are invited to be mindful, especially to bring our awareness and our attention into the body, into our heart, into our breath. and just spend a few moments in mindfulness together. Okay. Just breathing in deep and coming home to this present moment. So let's continue with our reading of the book Flowers in the Dark, Reclaiming Your Power to Heal Trauma with Mindfulness. Beginning now with the section Practice Self-Love and Loving Kindness. If you are finding it hard to feel love for yourself, try the following short embodiment practices. Even if you don't have difficulties with self-love, it never hurts to take a moment to practice loving kindness towards yourself. You can do this anytime, at your workplace, in the car about to go somewhere, or as part of your daily mindfulness practice. So we can follow along and practice together with this. Put one hand on your throat and breathe. Put the other hand on your heart or on your belly and embrace yourself. Breathe gently, feeling the touch of your warm hand on the skin of your throat. For several in-breaths and out-breaths, if you feel safe, try gently closing your eyes. Tell yourself, just breathe. It's okay. I love you. Repeat as many times as you like. If it is difficult or uncomfortable to say I love you to yourself at first, you can say, help me to love you. Help me to take better care of you. Move your hands to your opposite elbows and give yourself a hug. Feel the touch of your palms on your elbows. Hug yourself a little tighter and then release. Do you feel the warmth and the life force in your own body? That is love right there. We can give ourselves a few hugs. Do you feel the warmth and the life force in your own body? That is love right there. How often do we acknowledge that despite all the suffering that we might have gone through and put others through, life is still a feast to be enjoyed? There is still a lot of love within us and all around us as the energy of life. Try going outside for a walk, somewhere with trees and growing plants around you. Go with a friend or go by yourself. Focus on soaking up the oxygen breathed out by the plants around you. Allow yourself to relax and touch love in the air, in the steps you make, in the communal energy of living things. Do you feel love in the sunlight? Love is there. If only you would give yourself permission to taste it bit by bit. There is a lot of love in our body. Our body is so faithful, so forgiving. We may have starved our body or stuffed it with food and relentless experiences. We may have deprived our body of sleep, of rest, of care. But our body continues to be there for us. It tries to heal again and again. Realizing my body's patience and resiliency, I have learned to come back to the breath, to the body, throughout the day, and to send a lot of love and gratitude to this body. Sometimes we think negatively of our body. You are ugly. You are not as beautiful as you should be. Or, you're not as good as somebody else is. Or we send a message to our body like, I just want you to die. Why aren't you dead? Can you imagine what kind of energy that is? It is harsh, it's cruel, and it's powerful to send that sort of energy to ourselves. I have done that so many times in my life, and it becomes a habit. You just think of it, and many times you do not mean it. The self-hating thought rises up automatically, but it has the same effect whether you mean it or not. Your body still cringes. A dose of adrenaline is still released in your bloodstream. A sadness still sweeps through your body. I had sent many harsh messages to my body year after year. Eventually my body got tired, and an insight came to me. It was like a boxer in a long match. You punch him, he falls, he gets up. You punch him again, he falls again, then he gets up. But if you keep punching him, at some point he's not going to get up. He's not going to be able to get up. It's the same for ourselves. We are punishing ourselves if we keep sending ourselves unkind, unloving, cruel messages. You're stupid. You're worthless. You're nobody. Go away. Just disappear. With the awareness we gain by practicing mindfulness and leading a spiritual life, we learn to reorganize these messages, which I think of as death wishes. Death wishes and self-loathing stem from unresolved traumas in our life, reflecting and feeding on one another. Therefore, we set an intention to protect ourselves first and foremost from our own injurious thoughts, speech, and behaviors. Embracing ourselves and saying, I'm sorry, I don't mean that. Please help me to take better care of you. We can say to ourselves, I am sorry that I never thought I was worthy of love. So I'll read this last paragraph again. With the awareness we gain by practicing mindfulness and leading a spiritual life, we learn to reorganize these messages, which I think of as death wishes. Death wishes and self-loathing stem from unresolved traumas in our life, reflecting and feeding on one another. Therefore, we set an intention to protect ourselves first and foremost from our own injurious thoughts, speech, and behaviors. Embracing ourselves and saying, I am sorry, I don't mean that. Please help me to take better care of you. We can say to ourselves, I am sorry that I never thought I was worthy of love. In Chapter 8, Reverence for Life, we will look more closely at suicidal thoughts and also offer ourselves the counterweight to this deep suffering, to hold deep respect for life, including our own life. I have learned to tell myself every time a death wish arises, I don't have a wish for death. Death is taking place every moment. Every cell of my body goes through birth and death. Some old cells die. Some new cells are regenerated. It's a normal process. Can I learn to live beautifully? Can I learn to heal my sadness and pain for myself, for my partner who died, for my mother, for my father, for my brother, for Suni, my young niece? Can I learn to heal myself for many? Can I learn to die beautifully every moment? The answer to all of these questions is yes. Let these thoughts and feelings of self-blame and self-hatred go. Breathe and release them as soon as they arise. Smile to them. That is learning to live beautifully and die beautifully. Okay, we can take a moment here to see if anyone would like to share or point to anything in particular in what we've read so far. And also to sit and absorb and receive what we read, what we looked at.
She talked about life still being a feast to be enjoyed. The preceding sentence was, despite all the sufferings we might have gone through, jumped out to me that um, despite some of the trauma that I may have experienced, um, that some of that hurt may have been reciprocated to others, and that maybe I don't always recognize that. So to be mindful of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Anyone else can share something that inspired them or something they want to share from the heart about this? I myself, it very much resonated with me about this, not just to heal for my own sake, but can I heal in this way that is heals for my mother, heals for my father, heals for Sister Dang Nghiem here mentioned her niece, and I have a nephew who I feel very strongly about as well. So to kind of really learn how to deeply heal from and embody these qualities of peace and not giving in to any kind of self abuse or self hatred, and being able to embody that not just for myself but for people that I care a lot about. So that was quite meaningful for me. Okay, and then one person on the YouTube um, said something here pretty simple. Um, Missy said it's hard to hear. Right, it's hard to hear these kinds of things, and it's good that we can be open to listening to these teachings and this wisdom, because it's telling us something that we might not want to hear, especially if we're just thinking about it in terms of our desire, our aversion. Who cares? I don't want to hear it, but um, those things that are difficult to hear are tend to be quite meaningful and helpful as well, or quite poignant, at least we can say. So let's keep reading. Mindfulness meditation. As Buddhist nuns, the most central practice we have in the monastery is to sit in mindfulness meditation, which can be a most relaxing and nourishing experience. Also, as we go about our daily life, if we can come back to our mindful breathing more often, the mind becomes much calmer, because it is one with the breath and with the body. The mind is not so busy running around and generating all sorts of comparisons and contrasts, discriminations and preferences, and we can learn to relax. However, when starting a meditation practice, we may find that it is difficult to be still. For this reason, we also practice walking meditation and other forms of more active practice. In this and the following chapters, I will share some simple breathing, sitting, and walking meditation practices that you may find helpful in unraveling the knots of your tension, so that the process of healing can affect deeper levels of your body and consciousness. So that I can share that practice of mindful breathing as this um, pathway for a real kind of sincerity and embodiment in our experience, so that when we get into these healing practices, when we get into these ways of speaking to ourselves or relating to ourselves from this place of loving kindness, we're actually able to relate to deeper aspects of ourself. Even we can say our true self, not this like shallow story or thoughts that we have, but through that mindfulness of breathing, we're really here in the present moment. We're really shown up to our life. And that's where we want to practice. That's where the power of approaching ourselves in these ways comes from. Not from the intellect, but from our embodiment, our mindfulness, that we're really here. Okay, practice. Breathing flowers with our hands. Breathing flowers with our hands. This is a simple practice to check in on your state of mind. We can all try to follow along. Sit comfortably and rest your right or left hand on your lap or on the arm of your chair. As you breathe in, close your hand gently. As you breathe out, open and relax your hand. You can start with one hand, then try both hands. As your ability to maintain your awareness increases, your hands are like flowers, opening and closing. Okay, so we can maybe put our hands on our knees or on our laps. And as we breathe in, we can gently close our hands. And breathing out, opening and relaxing our hands. Breathing in, make a very gentle fist, but don't cause tension. Breathing out, just relax and let your hand open. See how many breaths you can follow and be aware of. Breathing in, our hand gently closing. Breathing out, the hand opening up like a flower. Most of us are hardly ever aware of our breathing. We rarely pay attention to it, yet our breath is always available to us. Wherever we are and whatever we're doing, while at work, sitting in class, or listening to someone sharing, we can practice following what is happening along with our breathing. This is a way of training our mind to stay with the body and thus be more aware. However, don't give yourself a hard time if you find your mind wandering. The moment you notice that you've forgotten your breath is the moment you begin to be mindful again. Simply continue where you left off. Being kind and non-judgmental with yourself is also a practice. Developing your own practice is the center of your healing. There are many ways to obtain support. For example, by finding a group of practitioners to sit with, in person or online. While connection to others is important, it is essential to first and foremost befriend yourself and your breathing as the foundation of your practice. So, while connection to others is important, being a part of a community, it is essential to first and foremost befriend yourself. Make a friend of yourself and your breathing as the foundation of your practice. Okay, so Sister Dang Nghiem says here quite clearly, this is the beginning, this is the foundation of our spiritual practice. It is essential to first and foremost befriend yourself, make a friend of yourself and your breathing as the foundation of your practice. So we can see at this moment, if just in finding our breath, if we can find a sense of friendliness towards breathing. A sense of appreciation towards the breath. And of course, the breath is wonderful, isn't it? It's really, really precious. There's so much to be enjoyed in the breath, so much to be appreciated, so much to be grateful for. Okay, let's continue with the reading. Practice following the breath. In my tradition, we compose short poems that we use in our mindfulness meditation, called gathas. These verses are similar to affirmations or statements to set intention, and I find them very helpful. The practice of following the breath will help increase the energy of awareness. You may like to find a quiet place to sit quietly, with your spine straight but relaxed, and say the following verses in formal meditation. You can also say them to yourself throughout the day to cultivate a sense of friendly support for yourself and your practice. I just want to add here that this is something that's a really essential empowerment, a really essential kind of way of understanding that we all know about being rough with ourselves or letting the mind run around and be negative or judgmental towards other people, towards ourselves. We know about that kind of that way of using the mind. Even if we don't feel like we're doing it, we know that that happens, and sometimes we get involved with it. Use the mind in this way of befriending yourself. Use the mind in this way of these affirmations, setting good intention, and this can change your mind in the same way that these negative kind of ways of speaking and ways of judging affect your mind negatively. And your mindfulness, that increasing the power of your awareness, increases the power, the potency, the sincerity, the depth of you using those phrases. So it's not just, I'm a kind person, I'm a spiritual person, but it's a kind of way of showing up and training the mind and setting deep intention in your mind. In guided meditation, a statement is given for the in-breath, and another statement is given for the out-breath. Then they are followed by key words to help you focus your mind, so that you can continue to anchor your attention in breathing as you practice looking deeply. The topic of this guided meditation is befriending our breathing. As you read each line of the poem, follow the breathing in dictated by the words. Okay, so I'll read through this guided meditation and we can follow along with it, okay? Breathing in, I befriend my in-breath. Inhale. Breathing out, I befriend my out-breath. Exhale. In-breath. Out-breath. Breathing in, I simply observe the characteristics of my in-breath. Breathing out, I simply observe the characteristics of my out-breath. Observing in-breath. Observing out-breath. Breathing in, I follow my in-breath from the beginning to the end. Breathing out, I follow my out-breath from the beginning to the end. Following in-breath. Following out-breath. By observing and following our breathing in this way, we become conscious of the sensations of our breath in our body. The touch of air moving through our nostrils, and the rise and fall of our chest and our abdomen. Gradually, we can bring our attention to all aspects of our being: our body, our steps, our actions, and gradually to our feelings of pain, fear, anxiety, and sadness as well. We gain an awareness of ourselves and loosen our strong sense of identification with the changing phenomena of our experience. Knowing how to take care of ourselves first, we then can go on to develop the capacity to recognize our suffering that is more deeply hidden. Meditating while walking. You can't really go wrong with walking meditation. In a retreat for teenagers at Deer Park Monastery, I asked one young man from Mississippi to give instruction on walking meditation to his peers. Standing in the middle of the circle, he started out with full confidence, saying, "Okay, take one step and breathe 3-4 times, and then take another step and breathe 3-4 times." Some teens started chuckling. "What?" he asked, hesitant and confused. "Or is it the other way around?" Practice. Basic instructions for walking meditation. In walking meditation, you train to be aware of your breath and your steps simultaneously. By syncing your breath to your steps, you cultivate the energy of mindfulness in your walking. As you may feel awkward and unsteady in your steps, the way a beginner feels learning to dance. So at first you may feel awkward and unsteady in your steps, the way a beginner feels learning to dance. So you incorporate one movement at a time. paying attention to the breath first, then to the steps, and then slowly incorporating the breath and the steps together. Go slowly at first. Breathing in, take 1, 2, 3 steps. Breathing out, take 2, 3, 4 steps. As you walk, you may like to quietly say an affirmation to yourself. I like to say, each step is peace. Each step is healing. Each step is love. Come back. Come back to this moment. In your daily life, the practice of walking meditation from your bed to the bathroom, from your car to the office, everywhere you walk, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. Come back to the breath. Come back to the breath. Enables you to live your life in that moment instead of being swept away by thoughts about the past, the future, or the present. What's going on may still sweep us away, but there is an island within you to come back to, and that is your mindful breathing and mindful steps. Does anyone have any question or something to share about walking meditation? It's really walking slow, starting slow, and syncing your steps with your breathing. So kind of bringing the body and the breath together. And then you can also make these affirmations. Each step is home. Come back to the breath. Is that clear for everyone? Walking meditation. It's quite liberating to know about walking meditation because sometimes we think, meditation is sitting under the waterfall or, sitting on hot coals or something like that, in a yoga position. But actually, we can go for a walk in the, meditation. We can move and meditate as well.
There is also a song that can be used for walking meditation, or a gatha. The mind can go in 1,000 directions, but on this lovely path, I walk in peace. That's usually what I say to myself when I practice walking meditation with my Sangha. And I wanted to share that because I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, these songs can be very healing, very practical ways to incorporate mindfulness and that sincerity, that depth into our lives. Because a lot of times it's that shyness, it's that attachment, it's that rigidity that we have that kind of keeps us locked into a surface level way of thinking, walking, living, and those songs can kind of get the rust off and open us up to being more flexible, more exposed in a safe way, in almost like a childish way. So thank you, Cassiana. Okay, let's keep reading. Creating safety by listening. Since the time we were newborn infants, we began the quest for safety, expecting others to help us feel safe. We listened to our mother's cooing sound and to her calming voice. We looked to our parents and other caregivers for their pleasant facial expressions, supportive gestures, and loving embrace. As we grew older, Our nervous system continued to assess other people's facial expressions, body movements, and vocal intonation as cues to determine whether or not they are safe people for us. Our senses and nervous systems perform this instant assessment and categorization automatically every time we meet a new person or situation, so we may not be consciously aware of it. Because this behavior is involuntary, we may fall victim to a constant feeling of suspicion, fear, and a lack of safety, which cause us to react reflexively. The nervous system of survivors of trauma may be stuck in a state of hypervigilance, which may give rise to false alarms when there is actually no threat. We do not feel at ease with new people, a new environment, or a new situation. It is extremely difficult for us to put down our guards and let others into our lives. Instead, we are constantly on the alert. I recognize this watchfulness in myself and in the teens I worked with in the San Francisco Youth Guidance Center, who had suffered from adverse childhood experiences. Among my medical school classmates, my friend Damon, who is black, would immediately scan the place when walking into a room and locate the windows and exit doors. While he had a comfortable childhood, outside his home he did not feel safe in the United States as a black man. It was sometimes difficult for me to connect with him because he would constantly look around and be on alert at sudden sounds or the appearance of strangers. Even when we were having dinner in a nice restaurant, Damon still behaved this way. One time, seeing the upset expression on my face, Damon muttered, "Sorry, it's a habit." When we have undergone traumatic violence, we may constantly look behind ourselves, and even a hug or a tap on the shoulder from behind can give us a fright. We might prefer to sit facing the door and with our backs against the wall, so that if anything were to happen, we could run out the door or jump out of the window quickly. On the whole, we tend to not like surprises and may prefer to gather in small circles of friends, going through life avoiding environments that trigger us. How can we begin to undo the lifelong habit of being on high alert? The practice of deep listening to the breath and body can help us assess situations with more awareness and accuracy. We begin to move away from involuntary habitual behaviors. We can proactively create feelings of safety and calm in ourselves and in the presence of others, so that we can develop meaningful relationships. Practicing mindfulness with our spiritual community is optimal for this purpose. All our practices, sitting meditation, walking meditation, eating meditation, singing practice songs, deep relaxation, listening to Dharma talks and Dharma sharing, generate the collective energy of safety, peace, and calmness. So I like to read this line again, and then we can see if anyone wants to share something. So Sister Dang Nghiem went through all of this information about how people who go through trauma have post-traumatic stress, how they react to an environment. And then the question comes up, how can we begin to undo the lifelong habit of being on high alert? And she just answers it directly. The practice of deep listening to the breath and body can help us assess situations with more awareness and accuracy. Listening to the breath and the body. we begin to move away from involuntary habitual behaviors. We can proactively create feelings of safety and calm in ourselves and in the presence of others, so that we can develop meaningful relationships. Practicing mindfulness with our spiritual community is optimal for this purpose. All our practices, sitting meditation, walking meditation, eating meditation, singing practice songs, deep relaxation, listening to Dharma talks and Dharma sharing, generate the collective energy of safety, peace, and calmness. Anyone to share about this? One question over on YouTube from Missy. Missy said, "It seems like the out breath should be longer than the in breath." No. I think just what Sister Dang Nghiem says here is kind of the answer. The practice of deep listening to the breath and the body. So whatever that state, whatever that experience of the breath and the body is, just listening deeply to that. John, do you want to share something on that?
Oh,
Okay.
I don't know, like the idea of like, deep listening, sort of like, I don't know, for me, like it also plays into the idea of trying to, be first aware of yourself and then learning to cultivate, self-compassion based on that, the first step to, solving a problem is that, being aware of a problem to begin with, if that makes any sense. But
Right. So the first step to the healing is listening.
yeah,
If we don't listen, if we don't know what the problem is, then we can't heal it. We can't really work with it. So that first practice as for the purpose of healing, to listen deeply. Anyone else?
I can relate very strongly to the feeling hyperreactive to one's environment and things like that. I have a lot of experience with that, so I think the advice is very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's continue on. Hospital environments. One night when I was doing a rotation in the emergency room at UCSF General Hospital, a rape victim was brought in for examination whom I will never forget. I walked by the room and saw her curled up in a chair all alone, waiting to be seen by a doctor. The lighting in the exam room was too bright. Everything looked too cold and sterile. Her body looked small and vulnerable. I felt so sorry for a girl so young, so alone in that environment. It was the opposite of a soft place to land. I wanted to go in to talk to her and offer her some comfort, but I had my own patients to tend to, and it was a busy night. Each time I walked by the room, I looked at her, still curled up all alone for hours. 20 years have passed, and the sight of her is still with me, together with a gnawing feeling of regret for not having reached out to comfort her, even for just a few minutes. How frightening and lonesome it must have been for her to be in that exam room, without parents or friends or even doctors or nurses to express some sort of warm feeling toward her. That lonesome experience in the exam room was traumatic, and it must have compounded her rape trauma further. However traumatic a situation may be, if we who are present in the immediate aftermath, the medical professionals, family members, friends, social workers, the police, the hospital staff, can act as a supportive community for the traumatized individual and help take care of the person as mindfully, kindly, and peacefully as we can, this empathy and thoughtfulness will ameliorate the severity of their situation. Ameliorate will make better. Then, with further time and space to rest, to process, to reflect, and to understand the experience, true healing can take place. And when we recall the experience in the future, we will remember others' warmth and humanity instead of further trauma. That is why taking care of the healing process is so important. Recently, I received a letter from Laura, a high school student I had been mentoring for a while. She recounted the story of her recent admission to a psychiatric hospital, and it immediately reminded me of what I had witnessed in the ER 20-odd years ago. It confirmed for me that many hospitals in the United States are still struggling to provide a truly healing environment for patients. So we'll now go into Laura's story about being in the psychiatric hospital that she shared with Sister Dang Nghiem. So Sister Dang Nghiem is a really senior monastic in the Plum Village tradition, so there will be many people that she's mentoring or taking care of. So this is her student Laura, who kind of found herself in a psychiatric hospital, and I guess sent this letter or recounted this story to Sister Dang Nghiem, who's the author of this book. Yeah, this is a letter. So this is Laras Story. My sister called the police to take me to the hospital. This was the third time I had been forced to go to the hospital because of my suicidal thoughts. I was so scared the whole time, nervous and anxious. There were many policemen standing inside my apartment, not allowing me to touch even my personal stuff. I had to go straight to the hospital with them, wearing my pajamas. Sitting in the back of the police car, handcuffed, I was overwhelmed by humiliation. It brought me back to one of my past traumas. I cried a lot on the way to the hospital. Why do I have no freedom to decide my own life? When will I have a control of my life? Why did I end up being at the same place again? Thousands of whys whirled inside my head, nearly exploding my mind. In the first hospital, I still had some good luck because I met some nice staff, including a nurse, a nurse's aide, a therapist, and a guard. They took good care of me and asked me why I came there. After I calmed down and breathed for a while, they lent me a computer to do my homework, and I journaled to give myself some encouragement and to express my painful emotions. The nurse praised me for being productive, and she brought me snacks and water. I was smiling brightly, so she told me, "You look so happy. not like other patients. I cannot understand why you are in here. But anyways, keep smiling bright like that and keep studying to become a scientist. I don't want to see you in here again." I smiled and thanked her. After the doctor saw me, he thought that I should switch my prescription from bupropion to lithium. So he transferred me to the psychiatric hospital to recheck my medicine and my condition before I could go home. The psychiatric hospital was truly terrifying. Just being there was traumatizing, and I could not see how it was in any way healing or helping any of the people who were unlucky enough to be admitted there long term. The therapists there were overwhelmed, emotionless, and numb to the patients. Even though I was there only overnight and discharged the next morning, what I saw continues to haunt me until now. The rooms were cold, and the indifferent treatment towards patients reminded me of those movies about prison. The guards were huge, always following and watching the patients closely. A nurse told me that if I had any questions, I could ask the therapists and nurses, but they were always on their computers at the nursing station. Some patients were wandering the corridors, some were screaming, and some were sleeping all the time. The atmosphere was heavy and tense. This hospital didn't allow the patients to keep their phones or laptops, and even my treasured necklace with the pendant of the Bodhisattva of deep listening was confiscated. We were treated like crazy prisoners, and it was very disempowering. I couldn't eat anything that night. Instead, I asked for a few pages of paper and colored pencils to draw. I was so scared, and I cried a lot. But then slowly I calmed myself down and comforted myself that I was only there for just one night, waiting for the doctor to check my medication. Instead of paying attention to my chaotic surroundings, I began to practice walking meditation, focusing on my breath and steps in order to calm my anxiety. After a while, I felt better. My terror and other emotions calmed down. As Laura's story shows, a patient's experience in the hospital can determine the direction of their healing process. And suffice it to say, patients going through trauma are all too often re-traumatized by the hospital itself. Hospital leaders and administrators need to do more to make these places more welcoming and healing for the patients, and provide something technology and medication can never offer: empathy and human understanding. There are few things that can make a person feel more safe, heard, and protected than the presence of a good listener. If we did not have anyone to listen to us after a traumatic experience like Laura, we can create for ourselves an atmosphere of safety by being a soulmate to ourselves here and now. Okay, does anyone have anything to share?
Uh, I do. It kind of reminds me of a situation I encountered once, where when I was a teenager, I was in a psych ward for a bit for depression. And there was like a girl there who was, always, stressed out. Like, they would always have to call nurses on her, just a whole entire situation. Uh, and it never worked, them trying to medicate her and whatnot. But as soon as myself and a couple others would just, chat with her, just be like, oh, hey, how are things going? She had, immediately, calmed down and whatnot. And it was very, I don't know, interesting, I suppose. But sorry, I'm not good at explaining.
Oh, I think that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so let's invite the mindfulness bell together. Let's invite the bell of mindfulness, and then we will take a few moments to sit together. And then we'll wrap up our Buddha Book Club together. Okay, so please make sure that you're comfortable, and we will ring the bell of mindfulness, or invite the bell, as we like to say, as Thich Nhat Hanh like to say. Okay, so at this point we can all bring our hands together, and we'll just say kind of a little bit of a metta prayer, a little bit of a loving kindness prayer, and then we'll do 3 sadhus to close our session out. So you can repeat after me. May I be well, happy, and peaceful. May I be well, happy, and peaceful. May I be free from suffering. May I actively participate in my own healing. May those who are nearby to me be well, happy, and peaceful. May those who are nearby to me be well, happy, and peaceful. May those who are nearby to me be free from suffering. May those who are nearby to me actively participate in their own healing. May those who are far away from me be well, happy, and peaceful. May those who are far away from me be well, happy, and peaceful. May all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May all beings be free from sufferings. May all beings actively participate in their own healing. May it be so. May it be so. May it really be so. And we can make 3 deep bows. So we bow to Sister Dang Nghiem, our supporting teacher in spirit here. We bow to this community, everyone who's choosing to show up live for this Buddha Book Club. And we bow to our own practice as well, that we are sincere to show up here and to practice. Okay? So we will continue tomorrow with our regular schedule. So at 10 a.m. New York City time. What's tomorrow? Yeah, 10 a.m. New York City time, and also 8 p.m. New York City time tomorrow for some group meditations and teachings and practice together. Okay? Be happy. Thank you all for being here. See you soon.